If you want to know anything going on in the state of Wisconsin, and right now, undeniably, the biggest story in Wisconsin, the trade finally, Billy, of Aaron Rodgers. Did you think it was finally going to happen before the draft?
I thought it would happen before the draft. Yeah. I figured maybe the day before, the draft got underway, but I figured it would probably get done because the Packers had zero incentive after day two to trade Aaron Rodgers because you would hang on to him and then until June 1st so you can spread out that cap hit. And the Jets wanted him in camp. So the Packers were kind of in the catbird. Everybody kept saying the Jets are in the catbird seat, and that wasn't true because they didn't realize that you can spread that cap money out if you hang on to Aaron Rodgers till June 1st over 2 years, which gives you about $15 million to play with. And that way you can bring in additional free agents or do whatever you want to do with that money. So I thought it would get done before the draft. I think the Packers got a really good deal to be able to flip-flop the 13 and 15 pick. That way the Jets don't trade with anybody else to give away a player maybe the Packers might covet. The Packers get the additional second-round draft choice. So if they want to move up even and package up a couple of second-round draft choices later to move back up into the first round to get somebody, they can. So I thought it was a really, really good deal. And it was funny, Tom. You and I were texting yesterday, and on one hand, I'm here in Florida where there's a lot of snowbirds from Green Bay and from Wisconsin, and they're just relieved. It's over. It's done with. No big deal. Let's get rid of them. And on the other hand, I just thought, they just traded away the end of 30 plus years of Hall of Fame quarterback play. This is the end of an era. And unless Jordan Love is the next coming, which I don't believe he is, we might be in the dark ages for a little while as Packers fans. Everybody here that's under the age of, say, 40 doesn't remember the 70s, late 70s and 80s until Brett Favre showed up, and even Don Majkowski to a certain extent. So it was a little bit of a surreal moment to realize that this has now officially all come to an end.
It's interesting you bring that up, Bill, and I want to get back to Rodgers here in a second, but we were talking about, here on the show, it goes to show you, you have two of the all-time great quarterbacks over 30 years, okay? And Favre won one, Rodgers won one. That's two over 30 years. That might be the best illustration of anything that I continue to try and tell Bengals fans. It's just because you have this phenomenal quarterback, which the Bengals have in Joe Burrow. I mean, he looks like he could be a Rodgers, could be better than even a Rodgers or a Favre, maybe. But the bottom line is that illustrates how hard it is to win Super Bowls.
It is momentary plays in a game that either allow you to win or take it away. And you always have to remember, I'll never forget, I sat down with Ron Wolf maybe a decade ago and talked to him about what his joyous times were and his regrets were. And his joyous was Mike Holmgren, Reggie White, Brett Favre, bringing it all together. But you got to remember, you don't win a Super Bowl, Brett doesn't, without Reggie. And Aaron Rodgers doesn't win a Super Bowl without the leadership of Charles Woodson. It's just that flat out simple because you had the Defensive Player of the Year on both sides of the football, and you had a defense to back it up that was top 10. And you had a good offensive line on both of those teams as well. If you ignore those positions and think, well, we'll just get by, you're only as good as your weakest link in football. And in today's day and age, with the analytics the way they are, they will expose that particular weakness. Bill Belichick is a master at it. That's the reason he's got all those rings in his back pocket. But they will expose that weakness, and they will take advantage of it. Andy Reid's done it. We just saw that. Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles, I thought, were the better team. It wasn't two mistakes. It was a special teams gap. It was a fumble, and they lose the Super Bowl. Otherwise, they walk away with a victory. So it is so hard to not only get there, but it is so hard to then win it on top of it. You go back and look at Aaron Rodgers. They talk about, well, he's 1-4 in NFC Championship games. Well, but in 2014, don't forget Julius Peppers told Morgan Burnett to go down on a Russell Wilson interception. Had he not, he scores and the game's over. You got Bostic that went up to try to catch the onside kick with Jordy Nelson right behind him when they told him, let Jordy get it. Had he not done that and it doesn't hit off his helmet, they win the game. You go back to the game in San Francisco where Mostert ran wild. Rodgers got him there, but their defense stunk, and he ran for 240-plus yards. The game in Dallas where Rodgers throws this immaculate pass and the reception by Jared Cook on the sideline, only to set Mason Crosby up to kick a field goal to put him in the NFC Championship game against Atlanta. But their offensive line and their defense stunk. So when they got there, they had no chance against Atlanta. All these things have to be put into place, and it has to go perfect for you to get to and win a Super Bowl.
All right, look, I did a lot of games when Aaron Rodgers was a quarterback in Green Bay. I did, it seemed like even more games when Favre was a quarterback. You tell me if I'm right or wrong here. Now, look, they're different guys. Favre's a Southern guy. Rodgers a California guy, all that kind of stuff. But both end up coming to Green Bay, Wisconsin, which is truly the heartland of America. I love that town. I love the people. I love the people in the entire state. From the outside looking in, if I were a Packer fan over the last 30 years, and I don't care what's happened since, all right, I'm not going to get bogged down in that. I'm talking about their time with the franchise. I'm more of a Favre guy just because I think he's more like, people in Wisconsin. Rodgers, there's always drama. There's always something going on. Great player. Am I wrong on that, or how do you look at this thing when all's said and done? They each won one Super Bowl,
No.
So you start with that.
Yeah, 100% correct. Favre he was a hunter. He was a fisherman. He drank a little. He was in Milwaukee running to the bars and hanging out with all the people. There's a lot of stories, both good and bad, regarding Favre, but he had fallibility like a lot of us do. Rodgers put himself on a pedestal, distanced himself from the time he came in and started to get good, and then he reached the superstar status. The more fame he got, the further he got away from people. And you go there. You don't need to go any further than we're at a Bucs game. Remember, Rodgers is now a 5% owner of the Milwaukee Bucks. They're at a Bucs game, and David Boggs, left tackle for the Packers. They show him, he stands up, he holds a beer up, and he chugs it, and the crowd goes crazy. Then they switch over to Christian Yelich, who had just won an MVP. He stands up, chugs the beer. Everybody goes crazy. Then they show Rodgers. Rodgers starts to chug it, can't finish it. It spills all over him. And then after the game, when he was asked about it, he says, well, had it been 2 fingers of scotch, I'd have been better off. That's not Wisconsin. Not in the very least. He is by far, though, Tom, the best quarterback I have ever seen. Technically, mentally, he is like the Matrix stepping to the line of scrimmage. He's got the most accurate passing arm. Everything about him is better than Favre. But Favre had that something. He had the heart of a lion that made him great. Now, remember, everybody forgets, he had as many, interceptions as he had touchdowns. But there was something about Favre that made him so much more likable than Aaron Rodgers.
All right, so just a couple of more things. I know you're on vacation down there. Can't thank you enough for your time today. All right, Jordan Love. I know it's the great unknown. The Packers GM says they're not rebuilding. He thinks they can compete in that division this year. How do you see the Packers here in 2023, or is it impossible to say because of the unknown in Jordan Love?
Well, I think if there's 2 glaring weaknesses right now. They don't have a tight end that's even serviceable, so they need not only 1 but maybe 2 or even 3 tight ends. And they need a veteran wideout and then 1 or 2 more wide receivers. They only have 5 wide receivers on the roster right now, and you got to go into training camp with at least 7 or 8. So I'm hoping that Njigba is there, and maybe they can draft him. They need help on the defensive front. Who knows? Maybe Jalen Carter falls to them, and they could grab him to go alongside Devontae Wyatt, another Georgia guy, to go alongside a Pro Bowler and Kenny Clark. They need an edge rusher to kind of back up Rashawn Gary, because Rashawn Gary is going to be coming back from an ACL, and they need some depth in the secondary. But that being said, I believe they've got playoff talent. It's just whether or not Jordan Love is the real deal, or at least above serviceable. And if you don't have a guy that is above serviceable, then you need to put all the pieces around him that will be. And they need defense. They need some weapons around Jordan Love. But I think if he is, say he just runs Matt LaFleur's offense, and it is a dynamic offense, and everything Matt LaFleur's wanted to do, they can now do, and Jordan Love has learned enough to execute it and not turn the ball over, I think they could be a playoff team. But you've got a really good Detroit team that's getting better by the moment. You've got a Minnesota team that's a little bit of a question mark. But, Tom, there's not much in the NFC. You've got the Dallas Cowboys, the defending NFC champions, in the Philadelphia Eagles, San Francisco, but they're without a quarterback.
Yep.
And then who? It's kind of it's up for grabs. So why not Green Bay at this point? But George, he's the great unknown right now. So if he's above average, and he is what you saw in those 9 plays against Philadelphia this year, then they're going to have a fantastic team. If he is what we saw in the Kansas City game and even the Detroit game in the second half the year prior, then this is going to be a long search for another quarterback to follow the 2 Hall of Famers.
All right, you've been around Rodgers every step of the way his entire career. We had Steve Serby, legendary columnist in New York, on the program last week. He thinks that Rodgers is going to really enjoy the banter, the give and take, all that kind of thing with the New York press. I always get very leery about players going to New York. I don't care who they are. I saw Randy Johnson go to New York, and he was every bit the Hall of Famer that Aaron Rodgers was, both later in their careers. And, man, all of a sudden you're taking bullets from directions you don't even see coming, bullets that were not coming, quite frankly, in a market like Green Bay or even Milwaukee. How do you think he handles New York? Because, look, I mean, you talk about what you just said with the NFC teams. He's walking now into the AFC, which is loaded with great quarterbacks, right? And a division that has Josh Allen, right? How do you think he handles New York?
I think what Aaron doesn't like to be is questioned. He likes to tell you and create the narrative, and then you got to listen. It's things he doesn't say that will tip you off to what he's thinking or what he's doing. And if you don't ask the follow-up, then you don't get the answer. It's like, go back to the immunization. Hey, Aaron, are you vaccinated? I'm immunized yet. He left it hanging. You got to do the follow-up. He does, like this past year when he hurt the thumb. He got very stern, almost curt, to a reporter that said, "Hey, is your thumb broken?" And he said, "It's hurt." And he looked, don't question me about it. That's not going to fly in New York. They're going to, but is it? Ask him again and again and again. It's like, when he went on the Pat McAfee show and he talked about going into the darkness and being 90% into the realm of retirement. And then when he came out, he couldn't believe that the Packers were shopping him around. Well, wait a minute. The next question is, Brian Gutekunst said we tried to contact him numerous times. And Aaron is notorious for not answering his phone and not texting you or calling you back. So the question then should have been, how many times did the Packers contact you? Did you tell them you were 90% going in to retirement before you went into the darkness? Did you touch base numerous times with Brian? Because he said you only texted him once or twice. They wanted to know where your head was at. Remember, Gutekunst said at the end of the season, what we expect out of Aaron Rodgers is a return on our investment. They're paying him $60 million. They want him there. He's only got a couple of years left, so go for it. He wouldn't commit to that, but he wouldn't tell him he wouldn't commit to that. But yet he wants transparency. So all of those things now are out on the table, and they're going to come into play when the New York's a hold of them. Things are going to be great for a while, but you give a little bit of controversy, a little bit of diva, and they're going to come after him. And he doesn't like to be questioned over and over again about the same thing. So either his press conferences that are notorious for going 20 minutes to 60 minutes, which we completely appreciate, they may end up going 5 minutes and saying, I don't want to talk to you anymore. And he'll just wait to kind of spew what he wants to spew and the way he wants to spew it on the Pat McAfee show.
All right. Billy, we can't thank you enough for your time. Thank you so much, buddy. Enjoy the rest of your trip in that sunshine, because I can't speak for Green Bay, but it ain't that way here in Cincinnati, Ohio. So enjoy it, my man.
No. Hey, we're coming to town next weekend. So if you're around, let me know. We're going to Bogart's to see a concert. So if you're around, let me know. We'll grab
Who
dinner.
are you coming in town to see?
A great band called 16 Candles. It's like an 80s party band. And so we got a bunch of guys from Elder High School that are going to go with us, and we're going to head up.
All right. I'll look forward. Let me know when you get in, okay? We'll get together for sure. All right. Yeah. Bill Michaels, kind enough to join us. That guy's all over it.